Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of J.S. Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at Jesu meine Freude, which translates to Jesus, my joy. This is a pretty interesting chorale, has a couple of unique harmonic moments that we're going to cover as we get to them, but we're just going to hop right into the analysis. So 1 sharp in the key signature, we start on E minor, we end on E major. I reckon we're in the key of E minor. And as we move on to the next beat, we have our first interesting harmonic development. We have D natural, B, F sharp, and B, which is B minor in first inversion, 5-6. We would expect a major chord here, but we have the D natural in the bass, which is interesting. And that goes to C, A, E, and A, which is A minor over C. That would be a 4-6 chord, A minor, which is our subdominant. Then we have B and D sharp. That's kind of like a passing 5 chord a little bit with some non-chord tones in the other voices. I guess this A would be the 7th, but this C would need to be a B or a D sharp to fully contextualize the chord. So one of them is a neighbor tone, not a passing tone. Then we have A, C, E, and G, and we might be tempted to call this a 2-7 chord if we look literally on the downbeat, but I think the chord tones in question are actually G, B, E, and G, which would be E minor in first inversion. We then go to A, C, E, and F sharp. That's F sharp minor 7 flat 5 in first inversion. We know that Bach loves his 2-6-5 chords. Then we go to B, B, D sharp, and F sharp. There's our B major chord, which is our dominant in root position, passing 7th in the tenor, and then we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of E minor, where we cadence on the tonic with the tonic and the melody. Next phrase ends with a half cadence in the key of E minor, but the melody does something really interesting. We have B, C sharp, and D, which makes me feel like we've modulated to the key of B minor temporarily to get back to the key of E minor. It's a very interesting juxtaposition here. So we have E minor, which is our pivot chord to the key of B minor. It's now our subdominant. We have some passing tones going on in the inner voices before we go to A, C sharp, E, and C sharp, which is A major in root position. That's a 7 chord, or some people might call it 5 of 3, depending on how you view the leading tone and how necessary it is in minor keys. We then have a passing 7th in the bass and a passing tone in the tenor. We have F sharp, A, F sharp, and D. That's D major in first inversion. That's 3-6. Remember 3-6, we're going to see it again later in a very interesting configuration. We then have G, G, D, and B. That's G major in root position. That's a 6 chord. So we have a cycle of 5th progression so far, 4-7-3-6. Some passing tones in the lower voices, one of them being a 7th. We then have E, B, G, and E. That's E minor in root position. That is our 4 chord, which I think is our pivot chord back to the key of E minor. This G turns the chord into root position. No harm in analyzing that. And then we have E, E, A, and C, E, A, and E. The C natural here is kind of a giveaway that we are back in the key of E minor because we would expect C sharp otherwise. That's A minor in first inversion, and then we cadence on B major, B, F sharp, B, and D sharp. That's our dominant. And this is a special type of half cadence called a Phrygian half cadence because of the half step movement in the bass, C natural to B, flat 6 to 5. And then we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of E minor. So 5 goes to E minor as we would expect, G, B, B, and E. That's E minor in first inversion. Passing tone in the bass before we get E, E, B, and G. That's another E minor chord, but this time in root position. We then have A, E, C, and F sharp. That's F sharp minor 7 flat 5 in first inversion. We know that Bach loves his 2-6-5 chords. And then we have B, D sharp, B, and F sharp with this passing 7th in the alto. That's our dominant B major before we cadence on E minor, E, B, G, and E, with the tonic and the melody making it perfect authentic. Okay, looking ahead, we have another perfect authentic cadence, but this time in the key of the relative major, which is G. We start off with another E minor chord, E, E, G, and B. That's our tonic. And I'm going to reanalyze it because it's a new system, so visually our eye can continue, as opposed to two measures that consecutively have the same chord that are on the same system. They're closer to each other visually, so I tend not to reanalyze them unless the figured bass changes. But then we go to D sharp, B, F sharp, and B. So that's a B major chord in first inversion. This is kind of how we would expect the first phrase to go, but we don't quite get it. Because of D sharp, we're not quite in the key of G major yet, so I think we modulate soon. Passing tone, or more specifically a passing seventh in the tenor, and then we have E, G, E, and C, so another deceptive-ish progression. Instead of going to A minor, we go to C major over E. That's 6, 6, kind of an unusual configuration for the chord. We would expect 6 in root position in a lot of cases, but here we get it in first inversion, and I think this is where we modulate to G. We get 4, 6, which is much more common, and then we get some passing tones. As we know with ascending 4, 6 chords going to 1, right? G, B, D, and B. We usually get some type of connecting leading tone, which we get in the bass, and sometimes we get a complete 7th chord, which we do in this case. We have F sharp, A, E, and C, which is 7 half diminished. Ooh, I could make that look a little bit more legible. Hold on. 7 half diminished, and then we go to 1. Not actually much better, but it's okay. And this G is a chord tone, so no need to mark it with anything. We then get C sharp, that's interesting, C sharp, E, G, and A. That's A7 over C sharp, which is our dominant of the dominant, 5, 6 of 5. Then we have D, D, F sharp, and A. That's where we would expect A7 to go to, which is our 5 in the key of G major, passing 7th in the tenor, as we've seen in a couple of cadences now. We had it in the alto here, but we had it in the tenor at the end of the first phrase. And then we cadence on 1, G major, G, B, D, and G. Looking to the next cadence, we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of B minor, but as we've seen in some of Bach's chorales, he uses the Picardy third. Sorry, I'm trying to find my pencil on the page while looking through my viewfinder. He uses the Picardy third here in a minor key, which is unusual in the middle of a phrase. Not unprecedented, but unusual. And of course, that Picardy third is recontextualized as the dominant in the key that succeeds this phrase, which is the key of the tonic, E minor, the key of the overall work. So we have G going to G again, G, B, D, and B, so no need to reanalyze. However, I do think this is where we modulate to B minor through the 6th chord. We then get F sharp, D, G, and C sharp. However, I think it's this E that we're looking for actually, so it's actually C sharp, E, G, and B, which is C sharp minor 7 flat 5 in first inversion. That's where we would expect 6 to go, and we know that Bach loves his 2, 6, 5 chords, and that goes to, get this, this is really interesting, F sharp, A, F sharp, so we have the makings of a 5 chord, but we have a D natural in the melody, D, F sharp, A sharp. That is a 3 chord in first inversion, but it's 3 augmented, so we have a deceptive progression because we would expect 2 to go to 5, but here we have the makings of a 5 chord just without the tonic. We have a D instead of a C sharp, or sorry, not without the tonic. The tonic is there. No 5th of the chord, we have D, the 3 of the scale. So a bit of a deceptive progression, and he treats it kind of just like a dominant here. We have E, B, F sharp, and B here, this E being an accented non-chord tone. It's really D, B, F sharp, and B. That's B minor in root position, or sorry, first inversion. And as we're getting ready for the cadence, we have C sharp, A sharp, G, and E. That's A sharp fully diminished 7th in first inversion, so that's 7, 6, 5. And that goes to D, B, F sharp, and D, which is B minor again in first inversion. We have a couple of passing tones. We have a passing tone and an anticipation, rather. That doesn't really change the harmony. C sharp, F sharp, B, and E. That's like a chordal harmony. No need to analyze that. And then we have F sharp, B, F sharp, and C sharp. We know that this B is a 4-3 suspension over the bass. This E is a delayed 7th passing tone, but we know that 5 is being implied here, F sharp major, before we cadence on B major, our tonic, our major tonic more specifically. And of course we know that Bach is being tricky here. It is now our dominant in the key of E minor. So really interesting allision. This isn't the first time that we've seen this, but it always is very beautiful when we hear it. He just allies the phrases. It's like a long run-on sentence from an analytical standpoint, but in a very beautiful way, like a continuous thread that keeps the piece going. It's like a machine. But we end with a perfect authentic cadence in the key of E minor. 5 goes to 1 as we would expect, E, G, E, and B. Passing tones in the lower voices before we get G, B, E, and B. That's another E minor triad, but this time in first inversion. We get a neighbor tone here in the bass, in the alto, and then we get an E here. It would have kind of been a root position E minor chord, but this D would turn it into an E minor 7th, and we don't typically expect 7th tonic chords. I think we've seen maybe one or two tops, but it's very uncommon, and I think it's more so a byproduct of the counterpoint, just like how it is here, just some more accented than others. Most of the time they happen on the offbeat of the harmonic rhythm. But then we go to C, C, E, and A. That's A minor in first inversion. That's a 4/6 chord. And as we go to the tonic, a very interesting development. We get E, B, G, and G. That's our tonic right here. But if we look on the offbeat, we don't get a leading tone because it's not coming from C sharp. It's going C, D, E. So we have a diatonic minor scale here. No chromatic alterations, no leading tone. We have D, F sharp, A, and C, which we still get our 7 chord, but it's a 7/7 chord and it's major. And that's very particular. I don't think we've seen this before, but it still continues my theory of 4 going to 7 going to 1 as a harmonic formula that Bach employs when he goes from a 4/6 chord going to 1. And this wouldn't be a 7/7 chord, it'd be a 7/6/5 chord, which I guess technically, well, not technically, literally speaking, it's still a 7 chord, just inverted. So 7/6 going to 1, and that gets turned to C, E, G, and B, which is kind of like a 6/7 chord, but I don't think that's super important. Regardless, we go to F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, and E, as opposed to F sharp, A natural, C natural, and E, which is what we would expect, and F sharp minor 7 flat 5. In this case, we get F sharp 7 over A sharp, which is the dominant of the dominant, 5/6/5 of 5, going to B major, B, B, D sharp, and F, which is our 5. That's where we would expect the chord to go, passing 7th in the tenor, and then we have E major, E, G sharp, B, and E, our major tonic, via the Picardy third, the G sharp. And that is today's analysis. Very beautiful chorale. I mean, Jesu meine Freude is one of those melodies that's pretty synonymous with Bach's music. It's a very popular hymn in the Lutheran tradition, so Bach harmonized it a couple of times. I think he harmonized it. We've definitely looked at the melody before, maybe even twice. But the melody, the primary motive, the 5/5/4/3/2/1, the B, B, A, G, F sharp, E in this case, because we're in E minor, is a pretty interesting. I mean, it's not interesting. It is interesting. But what I was trying to say is that it's it's one of the more well-known melodies that Bach has harmonized. And we do see it in a number of his works. And we've looked at one recently, and we might have looked at another one even before that. That's one of the higher BWV numbers. But yeah, it's a very beautiful melody, and the use of D natural minor and D with the, did I say D natural minor? I meant E natural minor, and also the use of the leading tone is very fascinating. And I think that he displays his use of the leading tone and how it impacts the harmony in full display in this particular chorale. Like, we get the augmented chord, we also get the minor 5. They happen in the same sound world, which is really interesting, and that's what makes analysis really exciting for me, is these little harmonic quirks. So I think I'll cap the analysis off with that one, my long-winded rant on leading tones and minor. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel as well. I make a video every single day, so if you are catching me while I'm on this journey, I'm currently analyzing all of Bach's chorales. I have hundreds of videos scheduled for the future, so feel free to subscribe if you'd like a daily analysis video. I'd be happy for you to watch it, and yeah, consider hitting the notification bell as well, and leaving a comment if you have anything to say about my analysis or suggestions for the channel. I'm always looking to grow and improve, and I've fallen into a comfortable spot now where I'm just churning out videos every day, but if there's something that would improve your viewing experience and you're a regular watcher of the channel, I'd be more than happy to accommodate. So again, thank you so much for watching the channel. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's analysis, and I hope you take care.